The desert planet Kara 4 slept beneath twin suns. Wind carried sand like whispers, sliding over the skeletons of old ships scattered across the dunes. Evan Rook, a quiet human mechanic, worked alone inside a half-buried hangar. He lived for silence and machines. No wars, no crowds, just broken metal he could fix with his hands. That evening the scanner on his table beeped. A red light flashed. Impact detected North Quadrant. Evan frowned. Crashes weren't rare on Kara 4, but this signal was strange. It pulsed with unknown energy, something far beyond Terran tech. He grabbed his jacket, tools, and sand mask. Another job, maybe? He muttered and started his hoverbike. The desert stretched endlessly, glowing gold under the setting suns. He followed the smoke trail until he saw it a silver ship half buried in the sand, wings folded like broken glass. He slowed his bike and approached carefully. The craft was smooth, elegant, alien. Symbols shimmered faintly on the hull, like letters made of light. Then he heard it faint breathing from inside. Through a cracked window. He saw her. A woman, no, not human. Her skin was a soft violet hue, her hair silver like moonlight. She was slumped against the console, unconscious. A thin crown rested on her forehead, glowing dimly. Evan froze. "You've got to be kidding me." He forced the hatch open. Heat rushed out. Sparks danced across the floor. Carefully, he lifted her out, surprised by how light she felt. She stirred, whispering something in a language he didn't know. "Easy," he said quietly. "You're safe." Her eyes opened slowly, bright gold, clear as glass. She looked at him for a long second, then faintly smiled before passing out again. Evan sighed. "Yeah, sure. Rescue an alien princess in the middle of nowhere. What could go wrong?" He carried her back to his bike, then to his hangar. Hours later, her ship rested under dim lights while Evan worked. He removed melted panels, rewired circuits, and cleaned the energy core. The alien tech hummed softly, almost alive. She lay on a bed nearby, still unconscious. Her breathing was steady now, her strange armor half repaired. Evan glanced at her, uneasy. "You're some kind of royalty, aren't you?" The translator drone he kept on the table blinked suddenly, picking up her faint murmur. "Do not leave me. Chosen one?" He frowned. "Chosen one? What's that supposed to mean?" He shook his head and kept working. Outside, the desert grew darker. But above the hangar, unseen ships moved through the clouds, sleek, sharp, and searching. A voice crackled through their comms. "Find the royal craft. The heir must not fall into human hands." Lightning flickered. Storm winds began to rise. Inside, Evan's console flashed warnings. Unknown crafts approaching fast. He muttered, "Great, more visitors." The woman suddenly gasped and sat upright. Her eyes glowed brighter now. "They found me," she whispered. Evan turned. "Who?" She looked at him, voice trembling. "My father's enemies. If they catch me, you'll die too." He blinked. "That's comforting." Her gaze softened. "You saved me. You touched the mark of the royal vessel. That means the bond is set." He frowned. "Bond?" Before she could answer, the hangar shook violently. Explosions thundered outside. Sand poured from the ceiling. She stood, unsteady but determined, energy flaring around her palms. "Stay behind me." Evan grabbed his wrench. "That's not exactly my style." She gave a faint smile. "Then stay alive." The door burst open. Armored figures stepped in tall, silver-skinned soldiers with glowing red eyes. Evan ducked as plasma fire ripped through the air. The woman raised her hand, creating a shimmering barrier that absorbed every blast. Sparks scattered like rain. Evan stared, speechless. "Okay." Definitely not human. She looked over her shoulder. You fixed my ship? He nodded. Almost. Then finish it, she said firmly. We leave before they bring more. He hesitated, but her voice carried command, a tone that left no room for argument. He ran to the control pad, typing fast while the hangar shook again. She moved like lightning, deflecting shots, striking back with blue energy that tore through armor. When the last invader fell, she collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. Evan reached her. Hey, don't pass out now. She smiled faintly, eyes glowing. You don't even know what you've done. What? He asked. She whispered. You've repaired more than my ship, human. You've repaired the bond. Before he could reply, her ship's engines roared to life, flooding the hangar with light. The winds outside screamed. Evan shielded his face as the ship lifted, rising above the desert storm. For a brief moment, he saw her standing inside the cockpit, looking down at him. Then she spoke through his calmer voice, calm, certain. You will see me again. It has already been decided. And before he could say a word, the ship vanished into the clouds. Evan stood alone in the storm, his hair whipping in the wind. He stared at the sky, heart racing, mind spinning. What the hell just happened? He whispered. Above him, thunder rolled like distant laughter. And far away, in the royal palace of the stars, ancient voices whispered, the prophecy is fulfilled. The chosen bond is awakened. The twin sons of Kara IV rose again over endless sand, but Evan Rook couldn't sleep. The hangar was quiet, except for the hum of damaged tools and the faint echo of last night's storm. He sat on the floor, staring at the scorch marks left behind. Her ship was gone, vanished into the clouds, and yet something about her presence still lingered. He rubbed the strange symbol burned faintly into his wrist, where he'd touched her ship's hull. It glowed softly under the light. What did you do to me, princess? He muttered. The comm unit on his desk beeped. A distorted voice came through. Evan Rook, human mechanic of Kara IV. By touching the royal vessel, you entered the bond of choosing. The crown acknowledges your link to the heir. He froze. I didn't choose anything. The voice ignored him. By ancient law, your presence is required in the Hall of Trials. Refusal will be seen as rejection of the bond, punishable by exile or death. Then the message ended. Evan stared at the silent comm. Great. Either I'm engaged or I'm dead. He stood, sighing. Why does my life never get boring? In orbit, the star palace of Litherth royal ship glided through silver clouds toward a gleaming world bathed in blue light. Floating citadels and crystal towers shimmered above oceans that sparkled like mirrors. Inside the throne hall, Princess Lyra Vera knelt before the High Council. Her father, Emperor Varnes, watched her closely from his seat of light. You returned injured, the Emperor said, his voice echoing across the marble floor. And yet the ship reports. You completed the bond. Lyra bowed her head. It was not my intention, father. The human Evan Rook saved my life. Gasps rippled through the council. One of the advisors hissed. A human? Their kind should not touch the royal fleet. Lyra's eyes flashed gold. He did not seek honor. He acted with mercy. Without him, I would have died. The Emperor stood. Then by law, the choosing must proceed. The bond cannot be undone. Father, please, she said, rising to her feet. He doesn't even know our ways. Varnes's gaze softened, but only slightly. Then he will learn them. Bring the human here. The stars themselves have spoken. Lyra lowered her head, her voice quiet. Yes, father. But inside, her heart twisted. The bond was sacred, a link between souls. Once awakened, it couldn't be forced or ignored. And deep down, she feared the human didn't feel it at all, Dot back on Carafor. Evan's repairs were interrupted by the sound of engines outside. He grabbed his rifle and stepped out of the hangar. A massive ship hovered above him, sleek, royal, and unmistakably alien. The same blue insignia as the princess's armor glowed on its hull. A voice boomed from the speaker. "Evan Rook of Terra, you are summoned to Lithera under the Crown's order. Do not resist." Evan sighed. "I hate when people start sentences with, 'do not resist.'" He lifted his hands as two armored guards descended. One of them handed him a small cube. "Place this over your heart." He hesitated. "What does it do?" "It ensures safe travel. Or vaporizes me." The guard said nothing. Evan rolled his eyes. "Fine, let's go meet royalty." The ship tore through the atmosphere and broke into orbit, stars stretching like silver lines around them. Evan stared out the window, speechless. The galaxy looked bigger and brighter than he'd ever imagined. One of the guards noticed his silence. "You saved the Princess of Lithera. Few have ever done such a thing." "Yeah," Evan muttered. "I also fixed her ship. Pretty sure that's why I'm here." When they reached the palace, the guards escorted him into a grand hall that glowed with golden light. He felt painfully out of place in his grease-stained jacket and dusty boots. Then he saw her. Lyra stood at the top of the stairs, radiant in silver robes. Her golden eyes met his, and for a moment, the hall disappeared. "You came," she said softly. "I didn't have much of a choice," he replied. Her lips curved slightly. "That makes two of us." The Emperor's voice thundered through the hall. "Human, step forward." Even obeyed. "You repaired the royal vessel and awakened the ancient bond," the Emperor said. "By law, the bond chooses you as the lifemate to the Crown's heir." Evan blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Lyra whispered. "Father, silence," the Emperor commanded. "It is written in prophecy. When the heir's vessel falls, the chosen from the dust shall rise. You, human, are that chosen." The guards lowered their weapons in respect. Evan rubbed his forehead. "I'm a mechanic, not a chosen anything." Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Evan, I didn't want this forced upon you. But if the bond is true, it will guide us both." He looked at her, confused and fascinated. "You think destiny works like that?" She held his gaze. "I don't know, but I feel something when I look at you." The Emperor raised his hand. "Then the choosing begins at dawn." Evan stared up at the glowing ceiling. "Yeah, sure, dawn, why not?" Lyra gave him a small smile. "You fix ships, Evan Rook. Let's see if you can fix fate, too." Outside the palace, thunder rolled across the skies of LTHE. Twin moons of Lithera shone like silver coins over the palace gardens. The air smelled of crystal flowers and soft rain. But Evan Rook wasn't admiring the view. He was pacing. He had been given a new jacket, cleaner boots, and a guard who followed him everywhere. He had also been given one impossible fact. By some alien law older than history, he was bonded to a princess. He ran a hand through his hair. "Fix one ship," he muttered, "and suddenly I'm engaged to an alien royal." The guard beside him didn't respond. A soft voice broke the silence. "You walk like a man trying to escape gravity." Evan turned. Princess Lyra Vera stood by the balcony, moonlight tracing her silver hair. She wasn't wearing armor tonight, just a simple white cloak. For the first time, she looked less like a ruler and more like a person. He sighed. "Still getting used to this whole chosen one thing." She smiled faintly. "I'm still getting used to the idea of destiny having such bad timing." Evan chuckled. "So, this choosing ceremony. What happens if I say no?" Her eyes softened. "Then the bond will break, and my people will lose faith in me. The council will declare me unfit to rule. And you, will likely be executed for offending the prophecy. He blinked. Right, so it's more of a suggestion than a choice. Lyra looked out over the gardens. You think we are all slaves to our traditions. But to my people, prophecy is not a prison. It's a light in the dark. He leaned on the railing beside her. And what if the light blinds you? She turned to him slowly. Then maybe we need someone who sees differently. For a moment, silence filled the air between them, soft, heavy, full of something neither of them could name. Then a horn echoed across the palace. The ground trembled slightly. Lyra's expression changed. The ceremony begins at dawn. You should rest. Evan nodded. And you? I never rest before fate, she said quietly, and walked away. Ethera. Echoing like drums of destiny dotted dawn. The hall of stars. The ceremony chamber was vast columns carved from meteor stone. A ceiling of pure glass revealing the bright streaks of early sunlight. Hundreds of nobles and guards filled the space, their eyes fixed on the two figures standing at the center. Evan stood stiffly in a ceremonial uniform that didn't quite fit. Lyra stood opposite him, regal and calm, though her fingers trembled slightly at her sides. An elder stepped forward, holding a glowing sphere, the heart of Lythra. The bond of stars is not merely blood nor law, he said. It is the union of will, courage, and spirit. The bond accepts only truth. He held the sphere between them. If your hearts align, it will shine gold. If not, it will turn to shadow. Evan took a slow breath. No pressure. Lyra met his eyes. Are you ready? He nodded. As I'll ever be? They both placed their hands on the sphere. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a flash of light spread through the room, warm, golden, alive. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The sphere pulsed like a living sun. Lyra's eyes widened. It's real. Evan stared at their hands. Guess that means the universe has bad taste. She laughed softly. The elder bowed deeply. The bond is sealed. The stars have chosen. The crowd cheered. The emperor smiled faintly, pride flickering in his old eyes. But then the light shifted. From gold to crimson, the crowd fell silent. The sphere cracked with a loud snap. The elder stumbled back. Impossible. Something interferes with the bond. Lyra's head whipped toward the sky. No, not now. Outside, the heavens darkened. Dozens of ships descended through the cloud-sleeked black warships, bearing the crest of the Dravari Dominion, her family's ancient enemies. Evan turned to her. Those friends of yours again? She drew in a sharp breath. They found me. The emperor shouted, to arms. Protect the princess. Explosions rocked the palace. The glass ceiling shattered, raining shards of light. Guards rushed forward as Dravari soldiers stormed in, firing plasma bolts that cut through marble. Evan ducked behind a pillar. And I thought weddings were stressful back home. Lyra summoned her armor from the device on her wrist. Silver plates formed around her like liquid metal. Evan, get to safety. He shook his head. Not leaving you again. The golden mark on his wrist began to glow, the same light as the broken sphere. Lyra saw it and froze. The bond? It's reacting to danger. A blast hit nearby. The energy flowed through both of them, linking their movements. When Lyra raised her arm, Evan's shield activated in sync. When he fired a blaster, her armor glowed brighter, amplifying his aim. They fought side by side, perfectly in rhythm, as if two hearts shared one pulse. Guards and enemies alike stared in awe. The bond of stars had awakened in the midst of war, but amid the chaos, Lyra's advisor shouted, Your Highness! They're targeting the crown's core. Lyra's eyes widened. That's the power source of the entire planet. Evan looked at her. Then we can't let them reach it. She nodded. Then we finish this together. They turned toward the grand corridor as explosions roared behind them, light and shadow colliding in a storm of destiny. The royal palace of Lithra burned. Towers that once touched the stars now glowed red beneath falling debris. Smoke and fire mixed with the cold light of the twin moons. Inside the chaos, Evan Rook and Princess Lyra Vera ran through collapsing halls, their armor and weapons shining amid the ruin. The Dravari Dominion had unleashed its full assault. Black ships covered the sky like a storm of steel. The sound of battle echoed everywhere. Plasma fire, explosions, and the cries of soldiers fighting for a dying world. Left passage sealed. Evan shouted, sliding behind a fallen pillar. They're closing in. Lyra's golden eyes burned through the smoke. Then we take the high path. The core chamber is above the throne hall. She sprinted ahead, her energy blades glowing bright silver. Evan followed, his wrist mark pulsing in sync with her movements. Every time she blocked a blast, his armor strengthened. Every time he aimed, her vision guided his shot. The bond between them wasn't just emotion anymore. It was survival. As they climbed the marble stairs, the palace walls shook again. A massive figure stepped through the fire, a Dravari commander in black armor, twice Evan's height, holding a plasma spear. "You are the false heir," the creature growled at Lyra. "Your bloodline ends tonight." Lyra raised her blade. "Not while I still breathe." The commander lunged. She met him mid-strike. Their blades collided, sending waves of light across the chamber. Sparks rained down like stars. Evan aimed his rifle, but the creature's armor deflected every shot. "He's shielded," Evan yelled. "Not for long." Lyra twisted, ducked, and struck his weapon arm. The commander roared, slamming her against a wall. Evan ran forward, firing point-blank at the exposed joint in the armor. The shot broke through, sending the alien staggering backward. Lyra leapt up and drove her blade through the commander's chest. He fell to his knees, his glowing eyes dimming. "The Dominion will rise again." Lyra looked down at him, her voice steady. "Not tonight." The commander collapsed, the fire swallowing his body. Evan exhaled. "Remind me never to argue with you again." She smiled faintly. "Then don't start now." They ran toward the core chamber. The heart of Lithra pulsed in the center of the room. A massive energy crystal floating above molten metal, the source of the planet's life. It glowed bright blue, but cracks now spread across its surface. Lyra's eyes widened. "They've corrupted it. If it shatters, Lithra will burn from the inside." Evan looked at the readings on his wrist screen. "It's overloading. 4 minutes, maybe less." Lyra turned to him, her voice urgent. "The bond connects us to the core. If we channel together, we can stabilize it." "Can?" he said, skeptical. Her gaze softened. "If we don't, everything dies." Evan nodded slowly. "All right. Let's save your planet." They stepped toward the glowing core, side by side. Energy surged through the floor, crawling up their armor. Their marks blazed, his golden, hers silver, joining in one brilliant light. Lyra placed her hand on the core. Evan did the same. The energy hit like lightning, flooding their veins, binding them completely. Images flashed through Evan's mind, not just his own memories, but hers. Her childhood, her crown, her fear of failing her people. And beneath it all, the quiet loneliness of a princess who never chose her own path. Lyra gasped as she felt his life. 2. The solitude of a mechanic fixing ships in silence. The pain of being forgotten by his own world. And the small, stubborn kindness that defined him. Their bond deepened. The core responded. Light exploded outward, racing through the palace. The cracks in the crystal began to heal, but so did the link between them. "Evan," she whispered. "It's working." He smiled through the brightness. Told you I was good at fixing things. Then suddenly, alarm screamed. The Dominion dreadnought, hovering above the palace, had locked onto the core. Lyra's head snapped up. They're going to destroy it anyway. Evan looked at the readings. If that beam hits, the energy will chain react. There's only one way, she said quietly. Her eyes shimmered with tears. If I merge fully with the core, I can absorb the overload. The bond will channel my life into the system. He froze. No, you're not sacrificing yourself again. She touched his cheek. You were never meant to die for my world, Evan. You were meant to remind it what courage looks like. Lyra don't, but she was already stepping forward. The core's light enveloped her, her armor dissolving into pure energy. Evan grabbed her hand. The bond burned between them, golden fire wrapping around both their hearts. If you go, I go, he said. She smiled softly. Then we'll go together. The beam from the dreadnought struck. The core flared, brighter than a sun. The explosion rippled across the sky, vaporizing the enemy fleet in one wave of golden light. The fire consumed everything, yet it felt peaceful, almost like a silence. Then wind out the world of Lithera slowly breathed again. The golden light faded into dawn, spreading warmth across the broken towers and endless plains. Where once stood fire and smoke, now there was only peace, soft, fragile, and new. The heart of Lithera, once cracked and dying, now pulsed gently in the sky like a second sun. It shone over the palace ruins, bathing the world in a calm, living glow. Soldiers, healers, and survivors walked through the rubble in quiet disbelief. The Dominion fleet had vanished, turned to dust by the wave of light. But no one could find Evan Rook or Princess Lyra Vera. Only the mark remained, two symbols fused into one, glowing gold and silver, where they had stood together. Heartbeat. 3 days later in the rebuilt throne hall, the Emperor of Lithera stood before the council. His face, once proud and cold, now carried the weight of loss. The war is over, he said quietly. But the price was more than any crown could pay. An advisor bowed. The bond fulfilled the prophecy. The stars themselves intervened. What shall we tell the people, my lord? The Emperor looked up at the broken ceiling, where sunlight streamed through. Tell them the truth, he said softly. Tell them the air saved us, with a human heart beside hers. He turned away, his voice trembling. And tell them we owe our peace not to power, but to love. Far beyond Lithera, the void between worlds light shimmered through a sea of stars. Slowly, two forms began to take shape, a man and a woman, floating within the golden radiance of the core's pulse. Evan blinked, confused. He felt no pain, no weight, only calm. Where are we? He whispered. Lyra smiled faintly beside him, her silver hair glowing like moonlight. Between worlds, she said. The core preserved us through the bond. We became part of its energy. He looked down at his hands. They glowed softly, half light, half flesh. So we're dead? Not exactly, she said. We exist through the connection we created. We saved Lithera, but now we are its guardians. Evan chuckled softly. Guess I really did fix something big this time. Lyra laughed, a gentle musical sound that echoed through the starlight. You fixed the stars themselves. They drifted closer, their hands touching. The glow between them pulsed like a living heartbeat. For the first time, they didn't need words. Their thoughts flowed together, quiet, full of warmth, full of peace. A century later, the legends of the mechanic and the princess spread across 2 galaxies. Humans and Litherans built ships together, traded freely, and lived under one banner, the Twin Dawn. A core. At the center of the alliance stood a monument carved from the same stone as the heart of Lithera. Two figures stood hand in hand, facing the stars dot below them. An inscription read, "He repaired her ship. She repaired the stars." Together, they changed two worlds forever. Young cadets from both races visited the monument every year. They would look up at the glowing lights above, the twin suns now orbiting side by side, and whisper stories of the human who defied fate and the princess who believed in him. Beyond time, the eternal watchers in. The golden field of the core's dimension. Evan and Lyra watched silently as ships passed through the skies of Lithera and Terra alike. Evan smiled. Looks like they finally stopped fighting. Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder. They learned. Maybe that's what the prophecy truly meant, that one act of kindness could change the destiny of worlds. He nodded slowly. Kindness and stubbornness. You can't forget that part. She laughed again, soft and bright. A new star blinked into existence above them. A small one, flickering but strong. Lyra looked up. Another ship launched. Evan tilted his head. You ever miss it? The noise, the people? Sometimes, she said. But then I remember this. Peace, this light. And I think we're right where we belong. He smiled, looking at her, the same warmth in her eyes as the day they met in the desert. Still think destiny has bad timing? She smiled back. No, it brought you to me, didn't it? The golden field shimmered. Their hands intertwined, and as they watched two worlds growing together in harmony, their voices faded into the stars, not gone, but forever part of the light that guided travelers home. Epilogue, the mechanic's star, every year. On the anniversary of the Great Bond, a strange golden light appears above Lithera's horizon. It pulses 3 times, like a heartbeat, before fading again. The people call it the mechanic's star. Some say it's just the core stabilizing. Others believe it's Evan and Lyra, still watching, still protecting, still together. Whatever the truth is, every child of Lithera and Terra knows one thing. When the stars flicker gold, it means love never truly ends.